And look, we're going to move now sort of almost directly into session 3, which is about innovation. So I guess we've tried to articulate a bit of a narrative here throughout the day of describing what it was that we were facing in our first session. We've heard from our political leaders and the people with responsibility for solving these problems. We've had a good flyover of some of the issues around housing across inland Australia. And now we're going to look at innovation. We've got a couple of speakers who we'll hear from. Tom O'Day from the NBN. We'll talk to Nick Lane from Passive Place about ethical housing. We're also going to have a bit of a look at prefabricated homes and building resilient houses before we have the world's quickest lunch break. But I do want to continue to make mention of our sponsors. And for this session, it's Argyle. Without the sponsors who collaborate with RDA, Arana and Riverina, we would not be able to bring you such a diverse range of really challenging speakers and all the follow-up that we're able to provide. So Argyle, and you can see some of the images there of the people who are part of the Argyle picture, are tremendously supportive, and it's great to have them on board. Many thanks to them indeed. Okay, so let's go to our first speaker in the innovation section, and that's Tom O'Day from NBN Co, and he's the head of NBN Local New South Wales. Tom's had over 20 years of experience in predominantly executive people leadership roles across a lot of industry verticals and geographies. He's a very accomplished leader in the ICT industry, and he spent the last 8 years with Telstra, Optus, and now the NBN. He was actually also the co-founder and CEO of a profit-for-purpose tech startup called Crops, the surplus food marketplace, and he's going to talk to us about Connect Communities. Tom, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat to everyone today. I'm just going to share my screen and go through a couple of things. If everyone can tell me when we can see that.
Yep, we've got
Genevieve. Excellent, very good. So I'm Tom O'Day, head of NBN Local, based in Yass in the beautiful Southern Tablelands. It's an interesting day for me and my family in our township today, actually, because unfortunately we went and did the big shop in Canberra on Sunday, and we've now been caught up in the ongoing COVID concerns that are happening in Canberra. So we're now entered 14 days of Sydney-esque lockdown at home in Yass and homeschooling for my 6-year-old as of 5 p.m. last night. So. Got it. No worries. Yeah, we're if my 6-year-old comes in and starts pestering me, apologies in advance. It might be a BBC Korean TV moment, but we'll work through it. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to the RDAs for the opportunity and the thought leadership being provided today. There's been some really interesting speakers already that I've heard. NBN's been a huge enabler, I guess, of the move to the regions. No longer have roles been confined to the East Coast or major population centres. You know, people have been able to do roles in places where they actually want to live for the first time in a lot of cases as a result of the changes that we've seen, particularly over the last 2 years in COVID. There's not many silver linings with COVID, but I think that for a lot of people that might be one and only, is that they've been able to be a little bit more flexible about both their lifestyle and where they're located. Well, I guess when we think about housing affordability, the thing we immediately think about is also housing livability, and access to high-speed, ubiquitous broadband, plays a massive part in housing livability, and it's not just a nice to anymore. It's definitely a must-have. I really liked Brendan's part about closing his session about sustainable, stable and inclusive regional communities. And I think that NBN and NBN Local have a massive and pivotal role to play with this imperative. So I'm just going to go through a few things. Sometimes NBN is a little bit of a mystery in terms of how it all works or what our position is and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to do a bit of an intro about who NBN, just to go back to basics and talk about us, and then some of the things that we're doing in the space around high-speed ubiquitous broadband and really driving fibre deeper into regional, rural and remote settings across Australia. So who is involved in NBN? NBN is a government business enterprise, so most people would know that the organisation is a government-built enterprise. We have shareholder ministers and federal departments that we work with on all of our stuff, being a government-built business enterprise. We have approved delivery partners that deliver our services on the ground, so contractors, subcontractors that do all the design work, surveys, inspections, construct and operate the network. And obviously the major part of our relationship and the way that NBN works is we wholesale our services to phone and internet providers. So we don't actually have customers in terms of people that are accessing the NBN and the end users that are using the NBN. Our customers are telcos, but we still, have to work with communities and stakeholders to make sure that people are getting the most out of the NBN and the way that we're wholesaling it. A little bit about our purpose. So the company's purpose is to lift the digital capability of Australians to have access to fast, reliable broadband network at the least possible cost to taxpayers. Just this year, the NBN has completed its initial rollout of the network. That means that the majority of Australians can now connect to the NBN, with over 11 million being able to connect. And we've got over 8 million residents and businesses that are already connected to the NBN. Over the next few years, and indeed starting last year with our corporate plan, we'll be talking more about how we'll be further investing in the network to grow capability, and there is a lot of that happening in the regional areas of Australia, and in particular initiatives to deliver higher speed internet speeds for residential users, and investing making business grade solutions more readily available to small and medium enterprises. So how we're tracking, as I've said, 11.9 million Australian homes and businesses are able to connect to the NBN, compared to 10.8 million in January 2020. Over 8 million homes and businesses connected to a plan on the NBN access network, compared with 6.6 million in January 2020. And I think that has really sped up as a result of the changes we've seen over the last couple of years. 70+% of homes and businesses are now on 50 megabits per second download wholesale speed plans or higher, compared with 67% in January 2020, and that continues at pace. A little bit about how regional Australia is tracking in regards to the NBN. As growth and development in regional Australia ramps up significantly, digital connectivity is universally recognised now as critical infrastructure requirement, the same as roads, trains, those things. NBN is the company helping Australia transition to a digital future by building and operating a new high-speed wholesale local access broadband network, and the rollout of the NBN network is the largest, or one of the largest and most complex infrastructure initiatives in Australian history, on par with things like Snowy Hydro. NBN services are now available to almost the whole of Australia. There's very few premises that are yet to be able to connect, and those ones are around some difficulties in terms of site acquisition or construction constrained sort of locations. But we have 3.4 million premises able to connect to the NBN, 2.5 million in our fixed line, so fibre to the node, premise, curb or basement, and almost 1 million able to connect via our fixed wireless and our satellite products. A little bit about the technology. So there's a multi-technology mix that we've deployed over the rollout of the NBN, and that has been based on, to the point that I made further, the best type of access at the least cost to taxpayers. Fibre to the premises, fibre to the node, basement, curb, HFC or hybrid fibre coaxial, which mainly resides within city areas, our fixed wireless product, and obviously our Sky Muster satellite service. We've got potential upgrade paths that we've identified as each access technology to help enable the provision of greater wholesale speeds and capacity over time as demand increases, as we continue to see. So investment plans for the future. In our 2021 corporate plan, we unveiled $4.5 billion in important network investments for the future. The network investment plan has three main components. One is making NBN high-speed plans available to more Australians. $3.5 billion of that $4.5 billion is being invested in that, and that will enable up to 75% of households and businesses in the fixed line network to be able to access our highest speed plans, and that will be completed by 2023. We're working together heavily, particularly in regional Australia, on co-investment and doing a lot of work with RDAs and local councils on this right now. We established a $300 million fund, which was called our Regional Connectivity Investment Fund, and it's a dedicated fund to co-invest with governments, predominantly local councils, to optimise and enhance network and access to the NBN technology within their LGAs, and we are doing a large body of work on that right now. And then supporting the digitisation of business, so $700 million to make business grade fibre services more accessible to small and medium enterprises, and an additional $50 million to work with governments to identify opportunities to extend business grade services. At the start of this week, we made an exciting announcement with another 44 what we call business fibre zones, and unfortunately a large number of those has been in regional Australia. So some great initiatives that are really levelling the playing field for businesses across regional, rural and remote Australia, and being able to access the same level of plan because of our wholesale prices now being as close to our CBD cousins as possible, and in some cases exactly the same depending on location. Trends in Australian homes, and as a result of the pandemic, home centricity, as we like to say, has increased dramatically. The average number of internet connected devices in a home is on track to reach over 30 by the end of 2024, up from 19.7 at the end of 2020. Smart TVs, smart fridges, Google Home, Siri, Alexa, these types of things. Overall, the growth in connected home devices has been nearly 500% since 2020 and shows no sign of abating. Data usage has also grown from 28 gigs per month in 2010 to 250 gigs plus in 2020. So it just continues at pace. NBN Local, who are we and why are we here? In October of 2019, a business unit within NBN was set up called Regional Development Engagement, and that business unit is solely focused on areas outside of metropolitan centres. We realised we were doing some great work in regional areas, but that we could be doing more, and that was the reason that business unit was set up. As part of that business unit, we set up NBN Local, and that is our field force of community engagement specialists, business specialists and community ambassadors that are out in the regions providing digital capability and capacity building programs to uplift the digital capability of regional, rural and remote Australia. Our purpose, again, is to lift the digital capability, but focused on regional. Part of the conditions of joining the NBN Local team is that you must be based in the region that you are supporting. People in regions, from regions, understanding regions, helping regions. We are all about regional Australians, and we are all regional Australians as well. As part of that process, we've set up 22 regions across Australia and are almost at full scale in terms of our community engagement professionals, with 55 people, jobs in the regions, supporting regions get the most out of the NBN network and digital capability in general. We have 22 community ambassadors, 22 community engagement managers and 11 business leads, and we continue to fill a couple of remaining positions, and we will be at full scale in the next couple of months. Here's a view of the way that we've split our regions up. In New South Wales, we have 6 regions, and in each region, the person that is responsible for that region lives in that region, not just in regional Australia, but in the region that they are supporting. And these are just a couple of the very smiley, happy faces that we have across these states that are supporting the different regions and the location that those people are based. And as you can see, it's a very widespread. This is just our local community engagement managers, and the community engagement manager role is really responsible for looking after key stakeholders and key relationships with LGAs and those types of organisations, RDAs as well, and helping them build digital capacity and capability through their remits and their stakeholders and their communities. We also have a regional business lead team, as I've said, and their responsibility is about uplifting the digital capability of small and medium enterprises across the region. So how do people make the move to the cloud? You know, how can they access our highest grade of service that is built for business, like the enterprise Ethernet product that I mentioned before? And then last but not least, our community ambassador team, which are growing and is where we're finishing our recruitment at the moment. And they are responsible for lifting digital capability at a grassroots level, providing education in libraries and Lions clubs, Rotary, those types of things, doing pop-ups in villages and really trying to get people to understand the benefits of becoming more digitally capable and what that can unlock for them in their lives and in their communities. So our focus is around 4 key things: developing digital capability, so helping customers get connected to the NBN through delivery of programs and campaigns that develop the digital capability of those that are connected and how to maximise the benefits of the NBN. You don't know what you don't know, and we're here to tell people about things that they might not have experienced or different ways that they can access digital technology. Developing regional infrastructure is one of our key focuses. I mentioned a number of ways that we are working on that at the moment, working with communities to identify and progress opportunities for co-investment. We've recently been successful in partnering with many councils across Australia with 18 successful projects as part of the RCP, Federal Government Regional Connectivity Program, attracting millions of dollars of additional investment with the LGAs, Federal Government, and contribution from NBN to enhance services in many places across the country. We continue to look to do more of this and look forward to partnering with organisations to make this happen in New South Wales and more broadly across regional Australia. Also about supporting regional performance. We understand that not everyone has had a great or continues to have the best experience that they could be having on the NBN. And by having people on the ground and listening more than we're talking about things, we're really uncovering ways that we can do things better and then advocating back into NBN about things that we can change and do better and really calling out some of the opportunities that we have in terms of the way that the network is working. And by having people on the ground and in the regions, integrating with our local communities, being the face of NBN, people knowing that where to go to if they want some questions or answers around NBN, and really being the representative of NBN in that location and making it really easy and open and accessible to talk to us about things. So in travelling across regional and remote New South Wales and more broadly, our team want to work with you on informing, educating and inspiring communities and organisations to get more digitally capable and increase digital capacity, supporting the development of regional infrastructure, as I've said, helping lift digital capabilities and providing easy access and support by being present in our communities. What we need from our stakeholders and people on this call is providing insights to influence development of technology offerings aligned to local needs, seeking development opportunities for investment and partnerships, and being the voice of the customer for the region and helping to identify opportunities and address problems that there may be. So that's a lot from me. I wanted to thank RDA and everyone for the opportunity to come and talk today. I know living in Yass what a challenging issue housing affordability is, and we believe that NBN is part of the solution to that, and we are working on many things in the background in terms of being able to do things differently, and things like, you know, how do we apply an additional service to a granny flat or a small home that might be being set up in a location, and those types of things. So thanks very much for the opportunity, and looking forward to taking some questions later in the session.
Thanks so much, Tom, and we do really appreciate you being here. I think we don't kick the hornet's nest about whether anyone's had particularly unfortunate NBN circumstances, because that's always a problematic one in regional gatherings, but I'm certainly very conscious of the much greater presence on the ground of people from the NBN and the real engagement with communities, and we really do appreciate you being here to talk to us about that. The next speaker in our innovation session is Nick Lane from Passive Place. Nick focuses on developing business systems that deliver whole of community impact and uplift, and he's created a community development model to assist regional communities to tackle some of the critical issues that are facing them, and that includes housing supply, but also those allied questions we've also touched on today: population growth, skills training, and employment pathways, because they're all so knitted tightly together. Nick's really passionate about sustainable communities, collective impact, and placemaking. He's the co-founder for Passive Place and Shift Regional, providing employment and housing solutions for regional Australia. And he's also got plenty of engagement and project experience in regional communities here and overseas. He's going to talk to us today about ethical housing. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you very much, Genevieve. Really appreciate the introduction. And I have one of your great team members controlling the slides today, so I will have to mention that I'll be changing from one slide to the next. I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that we all stand upon, and acknowledge that they are the custodians of this land, and that despite their continued suffering, I would like to recognise the courage and the capacity they have shown in striving to retain their identity and their cultures through more than 200 years of dispossession and colonisation. Thank you very much for the time, and thank you to the RDA for the invitation to share our work with you all. I'm Nick Lane, and I'm the founder and managing director of Passive Place, and we are delivering innovative and scaled housing solutions into regional communities. We are a community developer, a social enterprise with mission and purpose at our centre to deliver inclusive regional communities for collective impact and benefit. Next slide, please. So diversified housing is critical infrastructure for regional livability, sustainability, resilience and growth. And yet we are amidst some of the greatest shortages and the greatest demand for housing and accommodation in many years throughout our regions. We often see an almost exclusive focus on the to-market sector, but without the supply of quality rental housing in our regions, we fail to provide the critical and transitional accommodation for key workers and for our communities that they need to grow and sustain themselves. So a quick statistic: after analysing 7 million data sets over 10 years from Evo cities, it takes the average household or relocator about 3 years to decide to settle into a new community. So if you don't have transitional housing, you simply can't grow your communities and you can't fill the jobs in those communities. And we know, with almost, I think, 69,000 job vacancies across the region, that housing is a key aspect of that, and transitional housing is a really important part of allowing people to come into communities, create networks, and the relationships that they need to feel safe and secure to make those decisions to stay. Next slide, please. So in order to understand housing need, and to bring successful solutions to our communities, we need to understand a regional context and the need in that regional context in detail. Next slide, please. As many of you are aware and we've seen, over the past 5 years, regional housing affordability has diminished rapidly. And just this year alone, the combined dwelling market outside of capital cities has increased in value by 13 to 20%. This is twice as much growth of the capital cities. And while many may think this is positive, it also has many concerning effects. Next slide, please. At the same time, rental growth in the year to April has grown 3 times that of the growth in the capital cities. Next slide, please. While we have seen an ongoing trend emerge over the last 4 years of increasing relocations to regional areas, this is being exacerbated by the impact of COVID, the adoption of remote work and technology, as well as unprecedented infrastructure boom, which we've heard about today as well. So let's have a look at the numbers on this unprecedented infrastructure program that is now a significant factor placing pressure on accommodation and housing in our regions. You will see that New South Wales, Victoria and WA have the lion's share of current infrastructure spending and pipeline and New South Wales especially. Next slide, please. As you can see, the current pipeline shows that the vast majority of these projects are announced in detailed planning or under procurement. So they are funded and they are moving through the pipeline. This is an infrastructure boom that, due to us having to transform our energy infrastructure, deliver water security and mitigate our rapidly changing environment, that will last for 10 to 15 years at least. Not to mention the shift towards sovereign procurement, the drive to increase our agricultural output, and several other federal and national programs and policies that are impacting growth in regional areas. So this is a sustained infrastructure boom that, if captured by regional Australia through collaboration, strategic identification of legacy opportunities for regional communities, can lead to sustained population growth, economic and social uplift and outcomes. And I'll show you how we are using this to deliver long-term housing supply and outcomes in regions. Next slide, please. In the Riverina-Murray region alone, there is a $20 billion infrastructure pipeline. This equates to approximately 7,200 jobs that local businesses are missing out on, and their procurement opportunities due to a lack of capability and sufficient support to plan and develop the capacity and capability that large projects required. I've engaged with a number of communities that have already missed out on renewable energy projects, wind farm projects, because they haven't had a support network wrap around them and deliver the necessary capabilities to engage with those procurement processes. So this is a really important thing for communities to grab a hold of and facilitate and create programs for those businesses to help them build those capabilities. Some of the issues there: local businesses missing out on accessible supply chains, huge increases on housing scarcity and affordability, increased housing supply issues, and decarbonisation, which is also a need for climate resilience, and increased infrastructure pipeline. Next slide, please. So the pressure that these factors are placing on our regional housing market is causing significant stress and harm. There's a great deal of dysfunction in our current housing market, and it's very one-dimensional as well. And for our renters, who are often our moderately incomed, our key workers or relocators taking up those new jobs we need filled so much in our regions, this is causing considerable issues. There may be currently 62,200 jobs, which is, I think, the current statistic in regional Australia, but without housing vacancy, well, rather with housing vacancy rates at an all-time low, how are we going to attract candidates and where are we going to accommodate them? And with regional prices booming and significant supply issues, how are they going to find something to rent while they'll settle in their new community prior to making the decision to build or buy? So where is the quality transitional housing that they will need to build those networks and settle in the region? Next slide, please. So international data on the impacts of unstable accommodation on educational outcome really speaks for itself. And we are currently well and truly on the way to significant housing stress and supply issues in our regional communities. We need solutions and we need to scale those solutions quite rapidly. This is affecting communities and it's affecting businesses' capacity to be able to grow. Next slide, please. Understanding the housing supply issues. So to bring effective solutions to these issues, it's critical to understand the housing supply issues that are creating market dysfunction in our regional communities. Next slide, please. So a number of factors compounding the housing market dysfunction in our regions include there's a premium on many towns that are under the large regional cities in population, less than 40 or 30,000 people, of a premium of 20 to 30% to build in those areas. There's about 12% of our skilled trade force will retire within 12 years. We have an ageing regional population and 20% of the entire workforce will be retiring in the next 4 years. Traditional development models are not viable in the regions and infrastructure costs are prohibitive. There's a lack of housing diversity and local domestic builders are either not available or have moved to those larger regional cities because of the security of the pipeline there. Next slide, please. So let's explore what we can do by working with the accommodation needs of infrastructure projects and the housing needs of our communities. Next slide, please. What if we used Australia's largest infrastructure boom in generations and its accommodation needs to deliver housing legacy throughout regional Australia and develop the capacity and capability of local businesses to participate in the procurement and supply chain of this housing? Collaboration between infrastructure projects, businesses and regional communities can produce long-term housing solutions and deliver project and community legacy. Next slide, please. So how can this be achieved? Well, firstly, and it was touched on just earlier, we need to learn the housing lessons from our mining boom and don't repeat them through the infrastructure boom. We need to align project accommodation needs, business accommodation needs and community housing needs, as well as community development needs into strategic integrated housing delivery. And we need to combine and align project, social, business and community needs and outcomes. Next slide, please. So from here, I'd like to set out the way that Passive Place is approaching resolving our regional housing crises. Firstly, We use clearly articulated frameworks to understand the local context and specific housing need in that particular area. Next slide, please. We've developed a housing development model that identifies and aggregates the needs of a community. By using the data that is gathered from this process, we can begin to understand the overall housing need in a region, begin to aggregate this need and bring it into our co-design development model. We identify connections in the system's connections in the system for shared opportunity between businesses, infrastructure projects, community housing providers, and other groups, while assessing demographics and specific cohorts that are present in the community. We map the need and then explore the shared opportunity that exists in the community to identify strategies to deliver diverse and unique housing developments to serve a wide group of demands that are present in any one community. We then pass this opportunity through a pre-feasibility framework with the stakeholders and the community to ensure alignment, scope accuracy, and delivery practicalities for all involved at an initial high level. The high level pre-feasibility ensures a quick, practical, efficient, and cost-effective determination on the prospects of the proposal and the outcomes for the community and the stakeholders. Next slide, please. So we use co-design principles from the start to the very finish of each project to make sure that we understand stakeholders' needs, community needs, and that we work with them because they know and understand their communities, they understand their housing needs, and they understand their businesses and their infrastructure projects first and foremost. Next slide, please. Then we create a local housing roadmap for the community and those involved. We ensure we understand and accommodate the future context of our housing developments, ensuring resilience, sustainability, and longevity that will serve the local community for decades to come. Our developments use energy and water positivity wherever possible through the use of rooftop solar, domestic battery storage, solar hot water, microgrids, no gas connections. We try and ensure our developments are zero carbon, and we use smart rainwater storage tanks with integrated toilets and showers and climate event release mechanisms. We have embedded waste and recycling processes to change community behaviour and reduce waste and carbon footprints. And we solve any local supply issues and constraints by using rapid and off-site construction methods to ensure delivery and quality and sustainability. So let's look at two projects as case studies that we are currently working on and delivering. One is in South Central New South Wales. Here we are combining project infrastructure accommodation needs and a community's broader housing needs. We're developing an alternative pathway to delivering construction accommodation and community housing. We have identified a large infrastructure project that needs 200 beds of accommodation for construction for their construction period, a large community training facility that requires at least 100 beds of accommodation on an ongoing basis, a community housing association that is redeveloping a site for approximately between 20 and 30 homes, a community that has rising housing affordability and supply issues, and local businesses and community seeking pathways to participate in a development pipeline, an infrastructure pipeline that represents more than $20 billion worth of opportunity. And they're looking for supply chain development, they're looking for capability and capacity development. So we are currently exploring the alignment between council, community and stakeholders, including the delivery needs, the scope and the timelines to deliver between 100 and 200 beds of accommodation that will be suitable for construction workers, but then can be repurposed as housing for the community training facility and for the local housing provider. So this requires a willingness to think outside the box, to be able to deal with complex stakeholder management and be able to paint a unifying vision, as well as being able to compete with, as well as being able to align competing timetables and delivery schedules. But the impact, the legacy, and the common benefit is the driver. Projects like this can create enormous benefits for the economic development of communities, councils, businesses, and sustainable regional economic growth and enormous prosperity. It can look after everyone in the community, not just the needs for a single individual project at any one time. Next slide, please. In the Northern Grampians in Victoria, in Stawell, we're delivering a zero carbon regional housing pilot in collaboration with the council, the community and local businesses. The project will deliver more than 150 homes over the next 6 years via a long-term rental platform and use off-site prefabrication to reduce supply hurdles that we see in the regions. The project will also deliver a net zero community and diversified housing outcomes that are matched to this community's particular needs and the business's needs in the area. We are a community developer and not a property developer. We partner with communities to provide long-term rental housing solutions that are not delivered currently by the existing market. Next slide, please. In Stawell, we collaborated with the local council, researched the demand and assessed the data to identify the need now and the need into the future. We assessed this need and began to develop a strategy that we built out by engaging and confirming this local need with the local businesses, the council and community groups. We identified significant groups of key workers and demographics in this community that currently didn't have appropriate accommodation now or any guarantee of that accommodation into the future. And we worked with local businesses to develop housing partnerships for these organisations. Next slide, please. Some of the data that won't be unique to Stawell, but that was essential to have on the table for appropriate engagement, design and planning included almost full employment, that 20% of the workforce there will be reaching retirement age. So that's a requirement for downsizing accommodation that's closely located to the centre of town and has walkability and transport networks. Housing vacancy rates that's at 0.1% in Stawell, and that's common across a lot of regional areas. An ageing population that requires that accessible and more manageable and smaller homes, and appropriate typologies were missing. There were almost 4,000 single person households, but only only 2,500 one or two bedroom dwellings. Next slide, please. So this project delivers a unique combination of identified housing diversity for this particular community. Diverse affordable housing offering including, the diverse and affordable housing offering includes shared equity, build to rent, NDIS and key worker accommodation, as well as combining zero carbon design to facilitate affordable living, as well as the affordable housing. So shared equity, you might also know as rent to buy. So we are working in partnership with a major bank to provide alternative pathways to home ownership. So not just long-term rental provision, but also pathways towards long-term residency in those communities as well, and assisting people to save in an ever-increasing and expensive environment for their first homes. Build to rent. So effectively it's a regional build to rent, long-term rental. So it's safe, secure, quality accommodation for different types of needs in the community. There will be a number of workers and key workers that are there 5 days a week, a number of workers who are there for family, with their family, so family homes, a number of executives who just need townhouses, and then people transitioning in and out of the community. Key worker accommodation. So we're working with the local hospital there to ensure that there's accommodation for trainee nurses. We're working with the local abattoir there to ensure that they have migrant worker accommodation, as well as roadmaps for long-term accommodation, because they want to create career pathways. They want to sponsor those workers and allow them to settle into those communities. And we're working with the local mine there to provide executive and mining accommodation as well. Next slide, please. The project will showcase a number of sustainable and resilient community designed and plans for the future. We're dedicated to the UN sustainability goals and long-term resilience. So we're looking at producing homes that will be between 8 and 10 stars for this project. Next slide, please. It will deliver much needed long-term rental housing, shared equity housing and housing typologies that are needed and not currently available in this community. We've worked with those employers to prioritise local business needs for their key workers to ensure sustainable housing solutions and supply for their long-term growth and for the long-term growth of the community. So we'll have the key worker accommodation, we'll have 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings, there'll be townhouses, there'll be retirement villas, there'll be some co-living for cohorts like trainee nurses in the area, some shared living accommodation, and the last stage, because it is the least important to the community, is short-term accommodation. About 30% of any given market in the regions that have a strong tourist market has been taken out by Airbnb and short-term accommodation. So we do need to supplement and replace that accommodation for our key workers and our new residents. Next slide, please. The project will be delivered over the next 6 years and in approximately 8 stages. And there will be a great deal of, obviously there has already been a great deal of engagement with the community and council and the business, and we'll continue to do that and ensure that we are aligned with the community to bring the needs that they have into reality. Next slide, please. So what are the outcomes of this framework? Well, without the key transitional housing and the quality and stable rental accommodation, we cannot complete the wheel of the 6 pillars required for successful and sustainable communities. If any of these 6 pillars are missing, a community will face challenges in maintaining sustainability and livability. And so we're working with those communities to plug the deficiencies in the housing market. And we focus on ensuring that our regional communities have the sustainable housing ecosystem that they need now and into the future. And that includes the entire housing picture, not just to markets, not just greenfields, but long-term stable quality rental, opportunities to be supported towards pathways of ownership, and the necessary typologies of housing required for the businesses in those areas, the residents in those communities, and the changing demographics. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for the opportunity to share our work.
Thank you so much, Nick. And we've got some interesting comments too on the questions, which I'll get to a little later, but a lot of interest in the model that you're developing and that being appropriate to individual communities and their actual needs, which is really refreshing to hear about. Well, if we're discussing diverse, affordable housing, we're going to look now at prefabricated homes and whether they're a solution for now and in the future. Catherine Brasier is with us from Prefabulous. She's their sales manager. She's worked in wine and hospitality, which is apparently great, but for the last 15 years, her focus has been on property development and sales for new projects in the retirement living and the real estate sector. Catherine calls herself a self-confessed modular home nerd who loves a design challenge and with plenty of personal building experience. She's passionate about the idea that prefabricated homes could be a solution for now and into the future. Catherine, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Genevieve. And yeah, today I'll be providing an overview of what a new modular housing company looks like and why prefabricated buildings are an innovative and efficient option for construction. I'll just move through here. Just bear with me a moment. So Prefabulous commenced in late 2019. We're a very young company and was founded by Gavin King, who has more than 20 years experience in the construction and prefabricated housing industry. Gavin, with his business partner Tim Rose, identified a market gap within our industry for a quality provider of pre-built homes that address excellence in design and quality construction. So what does Prefabulous do? We are a modular prefabricated construction business based in Wagga, providing quality buildings for residential, community and commercial purposes. We offer a full design, construct, deliver, and we also install buildings on site. The buildings are constructed in our factory with kitchens, bathrooms, carpets, plumbing, electrical, all completed. And many of you may know Wagga Wagga is a centre for prefabricated housing construction, but we recognise a market gap to be innovative with our designs and building style. And this has resonated strongly with the New South Wales market. The philosophy behind our product is to create architect-designed homes for regional locations while being affordable. We stand behind the philosophy of prefabrication, which is efficient in so many ways. Number one is quality control, followed by time efficiency. Our homes are constructed in 12 weeks. There is less waste, materials are kept in better condition, higher build standards can be and are achieved, leading to greater innovation, and we can also be environmentally savvy. Prefabulous offer an individual service for every project. We create and manage the design, coordinate council approvals, complete the construction, delivery and installation. What you are looking at here on the slides are some images of our display home in Wagga. And one of the reasons these look so great is that we have concealed the stormwater pipes and gutters within the building. This not only allows us to build to the maximum limits in terms of transportation, but also allows us to create these wonderful, strong geometric lines. Our strategy is to inspire, inform, and educate our customers regarding modular and pre-built design and construction. We believe that if we can offer an innovative and unique product overlaid with great design and quality, service with genuine care and service, that we will be successful. Every one of our team members has extensive personal and professional experience in construction, and all of us are what you would call modular nerds. Prefabricated construction grew out of a housing crisis in the 50s and 60s, and since then, the industry developed as a reputation as an inferior product to on-site construction. But this perception is changing, and Prefabulous is challenging this notion with innovative design, quality construction, superior building materials. Construction on steel frames with substantial timber flooring, double glazed windows, and high quality insulation creates a home that is built to last as long as an on-site built home, and possibly longer. For our business, we've seen demand and growth in rural and regional locations, and we know this demand is due to a number of factors, including a migration of people from the cities to the region. It's also due to town builders being in short supply and are less inclined to travel to remote locations given the demand in construction at the moment. Security of materials during construction for remote, unsupervised locations is a significant factor. More control and certainty over price, and also certainty around quality and finishes, given all our construction is within a quality controlled environment. Business growth has been strong. We are fortunate to be a startup in our second year of operation, sitting smack bang in the middle of a building boom. In 2020, we exceeded our sales target of $4 million in sales, bolstered with the Witten Malthouse project at Leeton, along with several other residential projects. In 2021, the business is projected to exceed our expectations with a turnover in excess of $8 million, to include a range of different residential homes, anything from 2 through to 5 bedroom homes, as well as the Cupid's Winery project at Ulladulla, which is being installed this week. We have construction projects for 2022 already in the planning, and we are looking to expand our capacity to increase the number of modules built and thereby increasing our sales potential. 80% of Prefabulous homes are being located in rural and regional locations in New South Wales, and at least 50% of our customers have some prior building experience, as they regard prefabricated construction an excellent and fast alternative to on-site building based on their experience. To give you an idea of the delivery and install process, we have a short video to show you. This is for the Witten Malthouse at Leeton, which has been a huge success. I certainly encourage anyone listening to maybe book a night and experience the whole setup they have out there. It's quite incredible. So here is the video. In terms of forecasts for our industry, we saw some data from Prefab Oz for the next 5 years, and while prefabricated housing represents just 3% of the overall 150 billion construction industry, by 2025 this is expected to grow to a 15% market share. Growth is also seen for the construction of buildings in healthcare, community services, education services, libraries and police stations. Prefabulous recently tendered for a library project in Jindabyne, and we see this as our first foray into the commercial building sector. The industry aims to reduce project delays by 40%, reduce CO2 by 50%, reduce building waste by 80%, and see more efficient use of concrete, glass, timber, metal, plastics, and composites. Prefabulous has not only created a unique product, but we invested in our brand and continued to inject personality into the way we communicate with our market. We aspire to create buildings that last, that are robust and strong to meet challenging Australian conditions. The look and feel is warm with aesthetic interiors, and each design is inspired by our iconic Australian landscape, the woolshed, the homestead, the hayshed. We see the majority of our market being regional rural business, with coastal markets, particularly post bushfires, not being as strong as anticipated. However, what is resonating in rural and regional areas is somewhat of a renaissance. We are seeing young families moving back to the land, old buildings being replaced, and a real desire for off-grid, high-quality homes. In terms of our commercial building, we recently completed a project for Southern Oil in Wagga, and the image on the screen is a concept for a vintage car club, a proposed project for Wagga Council. We definitely recognise a number of constraints in our industry. Bank financing for modular building is a barrier, as banks are reluctant to lend against off-site construction. Restrictions in terms of building codes in land estates, most specify brick construction. Materials and labour shortages are a factor affecting the whole building industry, but we see our business as adapting with secure employment for our employees being a positive, and strong supplier networks. The Builders Grant and growing regional populations are certainly adding further pressure to our industry. Prefabulous is funded by private investors, and our business did require significant investment to kickstart. To take the business to another level will require additional land and construction of a manufacturing facility. This would enable exponential growth. We also see underutilised land as a limitation to growth, land perhaps owned by councils that could be better utilised with modular buildings, repurposed and reused to meet demands as the community grows and changes. To finish the presentation today, I'd like to show you our final video. This is a 4-bedroom home in the Snowy Mountains installed 6 weeks ago, comprising of 3 modules connected by breezeways. If we can start the video, please.
Yeah, this is Houston, we're copying. F2, I'm at 1/160th second. Yeah, we can see you coming down the ladder now. Roger, we copy. Pretty good photo job. And step off the land now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So soon after we did that installation, it obviously snowed very heavily on the house, and this has been a fantastic result for our client, who is in the construction industry in quite a considerable way. The interiors are quite beautiful. The client is delighted, and we see ourselves working all across New South Wales with no road or location being too challenging. Thank you very much for your time today. I'd be more than happy to take questions at the end of this session.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I think that's very impressive. I've got a comment, love the video soundtracks. It looks wonderful. And lots of very positive impressions about prefabrication that is not what we're used to by any means. Our final speaker in this session before we go to the Q&A is Tony Balding from Buildpro. He's the Managing Director of the building supply company Buildpro Wagga, National Tiles Wagga, the Lighting Network Riverina, and the Accelerated Housing Company Proprietary Limited. Tony's currently chairperson for the Riverina branch of the HIA. He's held that position for 13 of the 18 years since the branch has been reformed, and he's a regional executive representative for the ACT and Southern New South Wales with a very strong focus on developing better ways of construction. He's seen it all in terms of building systems, over 40 years in the industry, and has had the privilege to represent small to medium-sized builders on the board of the HIA and to deal with the challenges they have from design, legislation, bureaucracy and market trends. Tony's going to talk to us today about building the resilient house, fires, floods and social housing. And gee, it's been a tough time for the lot of them recently. Tony, a very warm welcome to you.
Hi Genevieve, very nice to be here, and some really informative guest speakers this morning, really enjoyed it. I'll just bring up a share screen to start our presentation, but just really good work from Prefabulous and what they've put together, and I think their music is far exceeding anything else we've heard today, so congratulations. We're just about to share the screen. So can everybody see that?
Yep, we're good. Thanks, Tony.
Okay, so to start our presentation, we've been working on a couple of projects here with the Building Supply Company, which is another part of our business, over a number of years, and it's largely driven on using our building products from CSR Hebel, which are strong in thermal qualities, sound ratings and fire resistance. A project that we've developed obviously it's come to head over the last 3 or 4 years, and with the climate effects in the housing industry, which we're all aware of, it seems to be, it will be irreversible for whatever reason it is happening. That could be another discussion for days, but what we've been working on is a project which was largely brought about by the Canberra fires in 2004. CSR and ourselves have been working on a fire shelter unit made from Hebel products, AAC concrete, and a lot of work was done back in 2004 in trying to bring a model together that could be built in situ in houses for a fire shelter bunker situation. So there's a lot of modelling done at that stage. It almost got to market, but unfortunately insurance companies and corporations just felt that there was too much risk involved in it. So from that period of time, we have been developing other products with CSR Hebel. In 2012, we're involved in some fairly large-scale commercial works with the Hebel commercial panel. So we felt that we could actually build a product that could be transportable ultimately. So we think that, we thought at that stage that if we can build a transportable model of a cube of commercial Hebel panels in wall systems, floor systems and roof systems, then that would give us an opportunity to overcome the problem of having an in-situ build product where it's fully controlled. And so we did develop a module of a fire shelter unit. We decided that we needed obviously to get it tested. We had some cost estimates from CSIRO to test that unit before we can put it on the market. And that became cost prohibitive. It was just, we felt at that stage it wasn't even worth the financial investments to put on the market, and due to the take up of consumers, because at that stage people were probably fleeing their property and not staying in defend, as we've probably seen in the later years. For some reason people think their property is worth more than their lives, but that's just for another day. So we built the shelter unit, we shelved it. We continued to develop other building products with our Hebel solid version. And then in 2019, after the start of the major fires through that period in the North Coast, we felt there was a completely different change in consumers' willingness to stay and defend. And we thought, well, you know, we should really revisit this fire shelter unit that we had made. We contacted CSIRO, and the federal government had given us a grant to go through and test it as a joint venture. That is still underway, but that gave us the bones of what we believe was a foundation to start thinking about fireproof housing in a modular form. So through the period of last year, 2019, 2020, we engineered, we built prototypes, and we actually came up with a model for a fireproof house construction, of which we had completed our first display house here in Wagga. It was built in December. It probably took us 6 months to get all of our engineering and logistics in order. And now we're at a state at the moment that we actually have got a pilot program work with the New South Wales government in erecting some community housing projects in Griffith and in Albury. And we're looking at other future sites at the moment. So earlier this year, we bought a property out of Bowman as part of the SAP project to convert an existing warehouse where we're manufacturing our housing products out there at the moment. So just scrolling through, we believe we not only have we come up with a bushfire zone, but a bushfire protected house. We think this is also adaptable to flood zones, and also converting low level, obviously low level laying ground may be also be used in the construction of these modules. So the basic module is constructed with 200mm Hebel panels on the floors, walls and roofs, and then the windows, doors cut in. So the windows double glazed, the doors are solid doors with steel door frames, so a very robust unit. The door sizing and the room sizing are aimed at NDIS silver standard. The roof construction is a kingspan roof, so thermally insulated roof above the Hebel roof itself. So I guess in real terms, what we've really created is a concrete structure out of lightweight concrete, high thermal advantages, and then waterproofed it with another grade of thermal insulation of the kingspan roof. Now, to create the spaces, we've been a little bit creative in what we do between the pods for the living areas, which will come up later in the slides. But the screw piles that you see at the bottom of that detail, they're a Katana screw pile engineered pile. So with the soil tester done on site, the screw piles are then engineered to suit the soil classifications. Largely, the screw piles are 3 metres deep, which gets below the plasticity of the soils. So each of those screw piles are very stable. The weight of one of those modules, the bedroom modules will weigh 11.5 tonne, and the bathroom modules will weigh around about 12 tonne. So there's significant weight in the system. It's been engineered and designed that 2 modules will fit on a transport, and the transport is not transportable homes transport, it's just standard transport. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility in costings and also delivering the products to the sites or the modules to the sites. So just moving through. So this is just a schematic showing the basis of the flexibility in the design. So on the top left hand, you'll see 2 modules with intersecting floor panels and roof panels. And the right hand side, this is a 4-bedroom layout. So if we can just rotate that around. This obviously doesn't show any windows cut in, but this is the actual process of manufacturing the pods. So the windows are cut in at a later state, and the sizing is according obviously to the room. The waste from that window product is actually used to make the steps to get into the houses, front and back and sides. So there's very minimal waste in this whole process. And as Catherine said from Prefabulous, modular and transport housing is very efficient in minimising wastes and also productivity. The advantage with this system is that each pod is the same dimension. So it's size that the bathroom pod and the bedroom pod is the same. So it's a repetitive engineering design, which means that we can upskill low labour fairly simply. And at the moment, we've engaged 3 Aboriginals in our program to upskill, And that's given us some really positive feedback, and we're really excited the way that they're developed. They're learning lots of skills, and you know, they're a couple of young kids, got a young family, and you can just see their growth has been fantastic. So for a business, that's really, really exciting for us. Our models and our plans, we have 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. We're developing a 2-story model, which is also going to be exciting. This is our video of our installation of our display home. So what you see in front of you there is the screw poles have been screwed into the ground 3 metres. The modules will be put in place, so I'll just start that. We work pretty quick, as you can see. So I'd like to stop it there. So you can see the space between the modules. They actually create the living area. So these modules are 3.3 wide, the space between these 4.2, and that's based on the maximum performance of free-spanning Hebel panels. So you can see that the floor modules are also prefabricated. So the system in itself is largely a 70% off-site build and a 30% on-site. So the projects that we've done in Lavington and Griffith, the 4-bedroom home and a granny flat in Griffith took us 8 hours with a crane to install the pods, the floors and the roof panels. So the efficiencies are very good. The site in Griffith, where we're putting 2 4-bedroom units in, we commenced there 3 weeks ago, and we have painters going through next week. So the speed and the erection of the system is very high. We're meeting all expectations of what we felt we could do on site. We have some audio at the end of this presentation to show you the finished results. So that's just moving through, closing up the end. So you can see the solid nature of the builds, the end filling walls where the arrow is there. That is also a 75mm Hebel panel. The bell ratings for this type of build, the bell 40 rating is where we use 100mm Kingspan roof, but still is encapsulated the whole area with 150mm ceiling panel, 200mm floor panels and 200mm wall panels. So they in themselves have got a 4-hour fire rating. So material fire rating measures are different to bell ratings, we understand, but that far exceeds a bell requirement for bell 40. So in a flame zone area, which is the highest rating, shutters can be put on the windows and the doors. The roof element at 100mm thick becomes semi-sacrificial, but in terms of insuring these houses, means that insurance companies would be prepared to insure these houses at a normal premium rather than what the expected premiums are going to be for any houses in Bell 40 or even Bell 29 houses. So that then also starts a conversation regarding financing houses and rebuilding into these areas. So what we have built is a resilient home. There is no doubt. The people that have been in them get a bit blown away by the feel of the house. Anybody who owns a Hebel house or has built a Hebel house in the past knows what the feel's like. This is the same type of feel. It's a solid home. The only gyprock in the house is in the ceiling of the living area. All the rest of the house is a white step finish. So performance above the standard of transportable modular homes. Our market for this is not competing against transportable modular homes. We're about putting resilience out there, solving problems. We're aiming at social housing because of the low maintenance requirements, the high thermal ratings, reduced maintenance, the rapid build. Termite proof, we don't have a termite problem because there's no cellulose material in the build, apart from the gyprock in the ceiling, but they'd have to be awfully hungry to get up to that height to get to them. So we're pretty excited with what we've done. There is flexibility in the design. This is a block of land in Lavington that we had put the 4-bedroom house on the right-hand side and the granny flat on the left-hand side. So we started that construction the week after Easter, and we handed that over to our client's Aboriginal Housing Office first week in July, and that was after some lengthy delays with some services requirements from the council and some of the providers, but the build process was seamless, and the clients are more than happy with what they've got, and the comment is that we didn't expect this, which is in a good way. I should just reiterate that. So I'll just play you a bit of an audio. It doesn't have the same sound as what Prefabulous does. I'm sorry, it's not from the moon, but it's not so country either. So I'll just. The granny flat. We certainly think granny flat a very robust profile. Granny flat designs are certainly one way to increase densities in all forms of housing, because the granny flat design obviously takes away the cost of dual occupancy. So dropping them into rear yards and being such a robust build, we think that that's going to hit the market. We have got, as I said, different 2 or 3 different designs currently we're building. We have a proposal in the moment for an upgrade for a development in Mount Austin in Wagga. And I think our approach to social housing, and certainly keen what Melinda Pavey was talking about with the Tolland upgrade, is a fantastic opportunity for Wagga. And we understand other regional areas mightn't get that opportunity, but I think that towns and cities can still work within generating the inner social housing suburbs and generating some mix of private ownership and social ownership. And I think that's the objective for the state government. So we think the joint venture between public and government is very important, that some of these suburbs can be identified and work within a street by street basis, not so much a suburb by suburb basis. And I think with the affordability of land, and we talked about land all morning, about the availability of land, but some of these inner suburbs and regenerating the fringe suburbs is certainly a way to be looking at a street by street approach. And that should be in line with the opportunity for even the first home buyers to buy into the land that may be on some derelict housing, sell the land at value at general values, and that's the incentive for the first home buyers, because every other first home buyer scheme that's been put out there for 20 years has become inflationary. I'm probably mixing the message here from what we're doing to the housing industry, but I'm sorry, I can't help myself. So that's the delivery, I think, for what we've been doing. We're very excited about where we're going with this. We haven't put it out into the public spaces yet, because we're really trying to concentrate on our offer to social housing, because we think there's a real genuine fit with it. I think there's some opportunities for transport housing like Prefabulous and many of the others. They do a great job in their field, but the difference between what we're doing and they're doing is that we are so robust, low maintenance, can't burn the house from outside, can't burn the house from inside, and I think that's where we're aiming our market. So that's my delivery for the day, or my sermon.
Thanks, Tony. And again, we're getting a really powerful response to this innovative thinking that's going on within our own region. And I'd like to now bring all of our speakers from this innovation session back online for the questions, and we've got quite a lot of them coming through. perhaps summed up by someone who's written, is prefab the answer to many of our questions? And I might just go to you, Catherine. Quite a few questions around prefabrication. Are there different kinds of prefab houses? Are some construction materials and designs better than others? And does the legislation require updating to recognise those changes in the prefabricated home market? Because I think the revelation for those of us who haven't thought about this much for a while is how much better quality build we're talking about.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing, particularly in Victoria, a level of higher quality integrated with, you know, much better design, much more thoughtful design. At the other end of the spectrum, there's volume prefabricated housing, which is gaining a lot of popularity with seniors living projects in combination with land lease living. So that enables sort of a more affordable housing model. You know, we believe that we can have great design, great quality at affordable prices, and what we'd love to do is to be able to increase our volume. What's probably holding us back is taking our business to the next level, where we can have a full-scale manufacturing facility. You know, that's our limitation. But at the moment, the breadth and depth of prefabricated housing is quite broad in terms of quality and design.
And just another question on that, Catherine, from Caroline Hong, who's from the Mid-North Coast. Curious to know what the minimum number of prefabricated modular homes are feasible for a developer or an investor. And also, do you offer furnishings with the modulars?
Yeah, I mean, with the Cupids project, we offered a interior design furnishing service. So that was very successful collaboration. In terms of volume, look, it really depends on the size and scale of the business. Some businesses in the manufactured housing industry can produce, you know, up to 1,000 houses a year. For someone like us, you know, quite small and quite a new company, we're probably looking at something like 30 to 40 modules a year. And, you know, a house may comprise of 2 modules. So that's our limitation.
Yeah, and look, I'll ask both Tony and you the question about the cost comparing to traditional on-site build. Tony, perhaps to you first. I've got a couple of questions for you too about cost per square metre for this example that you did for AHO. Give us an indication.
I guess where we fit in the market is probably between 10 to 15% dearer than an in-situ build. But I think with pricing of steel and timber at the moment, we're probably going to hit parity in the not too near future. All of our products are Australian made and manufactured at Summersby in Sydney. So we're not importing any products. The only imported products are probably the PC items. I think in terms of comparing our particular building modules to a transportable, we're a completely different structure. We're like comparing a double brick house with a concrete floor and a concrete roof and then putting another roof over the top. So we're trying to deal with that fire rating element. We think it's probably the only house in Australia at the moment that we're trying to get determination on that can do that as a modular build. So, you know, people will expect to pay a little bit higher for that market, but I think that the governments are very keen on what we're doing because the maintenance and the long-term nature of the building is much better than what they're getting with a light frame and cavity walls, gyprock walls, and I think they're just looking at a completely different build.
Yeah. Catherine, back to you on your costs by comparison to traditional on-site building.
We've seen, we started around 2,500 a square metre, 2,500, but with materials costs and labour increases, that's sitting probably more at around 3,000. It is very hard to sort of round it off to a square metre average, but yeah, in very broad terms, that gives you a guide. A manufacturing, sort of a more budget level manufactured house would probably be around the $2,000 a square metre.
Okay, and I've also got a comment that bushfire impacted areas are still short of housing. We're certainly well aware of that here from where I am in Canberra, doing a lot of coverage of the damage down the coast and a little further east of here. Is there an opportunity to support those areas through being identified as a priority supply area?
For our purposes, yes. So, this project for us has only really been out in the market. Well, it's not in the marketplace yet, but it's getting very close. So for us to build a module here in Bowman and ship it down the coast, once it's on a truck, it's only the kilometres that really make a difference. It's not a significantly great cost. I mean, ultimately, we will be looking at other facilities through the state to have a few centres set up to do that, so the transportation issues is managed that way. But small steps.
Yep. Catherine, for you?
Yeah, well, I lived through the Conjola fires. We are doing a house in Conjola. The land where the house was destroyed was sold, and the new owner now lives in Singapore. So we tend to see that a lot of people post fires moved into the town centres. So from Conjola, a lot of people just decided they, didn't want to restart. They just claim the insurance and buy a house in the town centre, which is Ulladulla for the Conjola area. And that enabled them to just, get on with their lives. So the emotional impact is something that's very much underestimated, I think, in these bushfire regions, and the ability for people to recover their, their lives. So it is a smaller market than we anticipated.
Okay. Nick, to you, I've got a question about the cost comparison of working with recycled materials, as you mentioned, or other traditional materials.
Look, recycled materials. We were. I was actually referring to our recycled methodology in regards to the community management and change behaviour there, rather than using recycled materials into the in the construction of the buildings. So, look, I know there is a number of innovations in the space. We certainly need to look at the a closed loop and the life cycle of materials. I'm actually working at the moment with one company that guarantees life cycle for their flooring materials, and they've done cost evaluations in regards to the maintenance of those flooring materials, as well as recycling them at the end, and it comes up as the best option compared to timber, to carpet, and there's a lot of new products coming on the market in that space. So it's certainly a very exciting area, and if we have a look at our international supply chains and the fact that we can no longer be pushing off our waste to other countries, that's going to become a bigger and bigger market.
Yeah, and I've got comments that nothing we've heard about housing from you, from Catherine, or indeed just a moment ago from Tony, look anything like the preconceptions that we've got. And that's just actually so refreshing and so exciting that all of you are sort of really challenging the kinds of houses that can be built within the constraints that are imposed on you. Tom, a couple of questions for you too. How can the NBN enable connectivity to the varied and innovative types of housing, granny flats and modern boarding houses and tiny homes and so on and so forth, which have been a bit challenging for traditional connection models in the past?
Great question. There's a lot of work that we're doing internally, and then also just talking about land access management and those types of things in terms of standard addressing and the way that we approach that. Traditionally, the way that a property is addressed in terms of, its number on the street and that sort of stuff has been the way that we have provisioned a service to a location. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we are coming up with plans at the moment about how we can, I guess, just update some of those things with the current realities around tiny homes and granny flats and that sort of stuff. So I don't have a updated announcement about what we're going to be doing in that space, but I can tell everyone that we do have a very solid plan around that. It's a larger issue than just NBN though, and I think that local governments as well are also grappling with some of the challenges around some of this addressing stuff as well.
Okay, and a couple more questions for you on how tech plays into the kind of housing workforce issues we've been discussing. One from Josie: how does this project, which is great, play into gig state development and tech spines? How are you orienting your plans with those much bigger intentions from government?
I couldn't hear the last part. I heard gig state and I didn't hear after that.
And tech spines. So that idea of the big strategic directions that we've had over the last decade or so from government, how are you integrating your planning with that planning?
Great question, and we are doing a lot of work with the New South Wales government, in my case, around that sort of stuff. Gig State was due to be rolled out, and due to the announcements we made as part of our corporate plan, that program of Gig State was actually paused as a result of the new market realities that were made apparent as a result of our announcements. Both our announcement around our business fibre zone locations, in terms of being able to access CBD wholesale pricing for our highest enterprise grade of product for small and medium enterprise, but also our changes that we're making in terms of our $3.5 billion investment to bring or up to 75% of premises within our fixed line network to be able to get almost gigabit speeds. You know, the work that we're doing with the New South Wales government is complementary to that, just to make sure that they're getting the biggest bang for their buck out of the initiatives that they're planning, but also that we're not sort of crossing over where we don't need to.
And how do you plan to compete with Starlink? One of our viewers asks.
Well, I guess the thing with Starlink, I wouldn't say that we're competing with Starlink at all. I think that Starlink is definitely going to serve a purpose for lots of people in regional settings around the world. I think that the people that will be accessing Starlink versus the people that will be accessing a SkyMuster Plus product, for example, are quite different. You know, when Starlink comes to your location, you get the Starlink, you place the order, you pay up front, you get the Starlink box at some point, which is currently in beta testing, and then it's up for you to install that Starlink service yourself. So it is a very different model to the one where we, you know, provide an install, you get to pay a monthly plan, you get choices on who you're buying your service off. I guess, you know, we've got dozens of retail service providers that on-sell our products. Once you sign up to Starlink, you're purchasing a service from Starlink and Starlink only. The only other thing I'd say is that some people appreciate that sort of hands-off and less management approach. Like, you know, there's banks that only offer online services, but with Starlink, they don't have any representatives in Australia at the moment either. So if something doesn't work, or, you know, something's not going so great, you're contacting somewhere in the United States or potentially elsewhere to try and get things resolved. The great thing about, you know, the Starlink product that is different to our SkyMuster product is that it is a low orbit satellite. So it basically is a lot lower, which reduces the amount of latency between the communications between the satellite and Earth. There are also some additional challenges with some of that as well. So we don't see it as competition at all. We think it's just another piece of the digital connectivity puzzle for regional, rural and remote Australia.
Okay, Stephen, another question for you. Nick from Stephen. Very interesting presentation of the work of Passive Place in the last 5 years. Stephen's wondering how many houses have now been completed under this model?
Well, that's one of the things about working with communities and making sure that you get the picture, you get a full picture, and that you engage and bring everyone on board. It's taken us now 2 years to move through the contracting period with the council, with Stall, make sure that the risk levels are mitigated with the major stakeholder, wait for RDA to bring in some connectivity, some utilities and some funding to the project, as well as combined council funding as well. So actually, it's almost 3 years now. So we're now at the process. We've got another 45 days or so, or 40 days until actual settlement. We signed the contract last week. So we're very, very keen to start getting homes on the ground. So yeah, we wanted to start much, much earlier, but everyone has to grow and learn through these innovation projects. And, you know, the contracts themselves, there's a 173 agreement in Victoria which we use, which ensures that the council gets what they're signed up for. So that that binds us to delivering the housing that we have identified within certain parameters and within certain timeframes. So to ensure that there's absolutely true alignment, and there's the research that was done, there's the community engagement, the council engagement, all of that takes some significant time. So we're ready to go. We've got manufacturers lined up, we've got consultants lined up, we've got the master planning process. So we're hoping to do the first stage, which is 50 temporary accommodation units. We hope to start delivering that in December. And we're now starting to work on the leaseholds with those local businesses, and they're just absolutely, you know, they're dusting it to get on board and get their workers into that accommodation. So we're very, very keen, but there's not a house there yet. Looking forward to getting one there.
Okay, we're in on the ground floor and knowing about this. Catherine, just back to you finally. A couple of comments from Caroline, who says, for 30 modular home projects, very doable for social housing solutions as well as schools and community, etc. More importantly, less likely delays, reducing project delays, saving money, reducing CO2, reducing building waste, and so on and so forth. But another question for you, does the definition of building under the EP&A Act need to be amended to remove the reference of manufactured homes and movable dwellings as an exclusion?
Yeah, I'm probably not qualified to answer that specifically, but look, I think the advantages of building getting a manufactured home approved is not dissimilar to approving a regular house. We still have to go through the council channels for a DA process. Yeah, in terms of the regulation, you know, perhaps you know, levels of quality control are probably something that the industry could look at, and that would be the extent of my expertise.
That's okay.
Can I just help with that answer?
Yeah.
With our model, we're doing under Section 68A bill, which is transportable modular homes. And I think we just have pre-lodgement meetings with the council, so they're well aware of what the process is. It's a little bit different for them. And we've engaged planners to create a pathway so it's easy for the councils to understand. And the ones that we put in place in urban areas, we haven't had any difficulties once it's all explained. So there is pathways for that type of build in council areas.
Terrific. Look, I want to thank all of you very much indeed. It's been another really vibrant, engaging discussion that's obviously fired up the people who are listening. So thank you very much indeed to Tom, to Nick, to Catherine and to Tony. We're going to take the world's shortest lunch break now for just 9 minutes to enable you to all go off and put the kettle on and go to the loo and come back at 1:30. We're running a little ahead of time, but I figure that's a good thing. And when we return, we'll go to our session 4, which is future outlooks and challenging the norms. Don't forget that you can ask questions. We've had some really engaging sessions so far, but I'll see you all back here at 1:30 for the final session this afternoon. Thank you all so much.
Genevieve.